I remember this night like it was yesterday. I was in charge of babysitting my niece. I didn't mind because she is only 13 years old and likes to play Roblox. I ended up ordering us a pizza and we watched a movie until then. When the pizza got there, we ate before I began to tuck her into bed because she had school in the morning. I watched the movie before getting ready for bed. I usually make sure all the doors are locked and check the house and make sure nobody is inside the house. After I checked every room, I started to lay down and close my eyes. I remember waking up because I heard someone knocking at the front door. Now keep in mind, it was like 11 p.m., so I wasn't sure who this could be, and I went and looked and seen nobody. I remember thinking to myself how strange this was, and I went back to bed. But after a couple of minutes, I heard knocking again at the front door. I figured maybe it was the neighbors playing a trick, and I got frustrated, and I checked. Still, nobody at the front door. I waited, but nobody came. I then decided to go back to bed. The next morning I woke up and took my niece to school and came back home. Her parents were not home yet. They said they would be home around 4 p.m. It was only 8 a.m., so I made some breakfast and watched TV. I wanted to tell her parents how someone was knocking at the front door last night, but I waited. I thought maybe I was just sleepy and was just hearing things. After all, I did take sleep medicine to help me sleep. After I had some breakfast, I took out the trash, and that's when I saw a note on the side of the house that said, "You should have opened the door." Next to the note was a phone, and a note on the back of the phone that said, "Play me," with a code. I remember how creeped out I was, and I ran back in the house and shut the door and locked the door. And I played the video. In the video, I could see someone was recording this house, and there was a guy who would run up and knock and then hide behind the trash can on the side of the house. They repeated this for multiple times during the night. They then showed them doing this to other houses in the neighborhood. And one of the older ladies came outside, and the man recorded the other man beating this old lady and then running the house with a gun and robbing these people before turning the phone off. I remember how scared I was. I called my niece's parents, and they picked up, and I told them everything. They told me how I should call the police and tell them everything I just told them. I called the police, and the police arrived. I showed them the phone recording and told them how last night I kept hearing someone knocking at the front door. And when I would check, there would be nobody there. The police went to the older lady's house in the video and searched the house. They found an older woman in her room tied up to a chair, beaten pretty badly. She explained to the police these two men took her younger daughter, and she doesn't know where they have gone. The police told the women to remain calm and they would find her daughter. The police started to put out a missing posters for the girl, and an undercover detective was in charge who would watch the neighborhood to see if he's seen these two people again. After 48 hours, we did not find the missing girl. But that night, while everyone was asleep, I heard someone talking outside of the window. I looked and I could see it was those two guys. I instantly called the police, and they told the detective. He ended up following them and catching the two men after they came up to the house I was babysitting at. The police told the two men to put their hands up and how they are under arrest now. They had another person with them because a white van came speeding down the street, and the police was on a chase now. After 20 minutes chasing down this van, they arrested the man inside and rescued the woman. She was inside the van tied up, and the man had a computer that was trying to brainwash them and make her not remember anything. You could see on the computer and the answers she would give on the recording. I remember the police officer watching this recording, and they were even questioning what was these three men motives. Was it to brainwash kids and make them turn into criminals? Or what were they doing? A few days later, a kid was reported for shooting a dog and killing it. The police identified this kid as one of the victims that these three men had kidnapped They brainwashed him and made him start committing evil acts. The kid confessed and told the officers how basically when he was kidnapped by these three men, they made him watch this video that would make you cry and scare you. And after they would give you a test, everything you did believe, it was fake, no matter what. They wanted you to be a blank slate, in other words. The kids talked about how they have a boss, and it's a cycle that makes good people commit evil acts. I remember the police were confused and thought maybe this kid was using excuses, but he was telling the truth. A few years later, the man who was in charge of this entire operation was caught and had turned over 200 kids evil. His reason for this was he did not believe in what we all believe. Instead, he wanted to show us humans that human nature does not change. We are all evil, and the only reason we do not hurt people is because laws and consequence. If you hurt someone, you will get punished. And that is why we act like we are so much of noble, good people. But in reality, we are evil people, and we could benefit from his experiment. As crazy as this sounds, the guy was wrong in the things he did, but he was not a dumb guy. He went to Harvard and graduated with a PhD in psychology. He just went insane after leaving his office for a few years. I now have a family of my own, and I still get nightmares of this because at any moment, someone could try and recreate this. And that is scary. If you ever hear someone knocking at your door and you go and check and see nobody, I would make sure all doors are locked because you never know what is outside of your house. It could be a monster or it could be a ghost. Working in the hospital is fun for the most part. I am a doctor, so I get a lot of privileges like special keys, key cards for special rooms, and my own office. I have been a doctor for over 10 years now, and I have had many creepy stories, but this one takes the cake. It was a Wednesday evening. I had a few patients who needed surgery. I did the surgery and began to take my lunch. I remember taking a bite of my sandwich when I looked outside and I could see a guy and a woman walking in. Nothing out of the ordinary, but for some odd reason, I just kept watching these two people. I wasn't sure what it was at the time, but now looking back at it, I really wish I could have seen this horror sooner than I did. This man who came in with that woman was a wanted criminal, and nobody knew this. The woman signed in and said she had a stomach ache. Nothing serious at all. You could just take some medicine for this small problem. They waited before going back and get her stomach problem fixed. The guy came with her. I was in the back where only the doctors were allowed to be. I remember sitting in my office doing some research, and I looked up the woman's name and saw she did not have a husband. He claimed to be her husband, but he was not in the system. The front desk asked the guy for his name, and he gave it, but this guy did not exist. Strange, I thought. I had one of my workers go and try and get more information about these two people. The men kept lying about his name, and the women kept saying that they just got married, and all of these stories were different from the previous one. Still, no crime committed. So we did not address this situation anymore. I kept an eye on both of them. After an hour, another person came in asking to see the patient. Who was the woman? The guy came in, and this was her actual husband. The other guy was her ex-boyfriend, who had been locked up for murder, so ex-criminal. These two men argued for a while. The security guard kicked them out, and they argued in the parking lot. Just the usual, why is she sleeping with you and cheating on me? The ex then pulls out a knife and stabs the husband in the stomach before dragging the body in the bushes and coming back into the hospital. I remember telling the security to call the police and to not let this man leave. He was in the hospital room with the woman acting like everything was under control. The police had not arrived yet, and they said they would be there in a little bit because they were dealing with something else. My security guards were in charge of making sure this man did not leave, and they waited outside of the patient's room door. I'm sure the guy knew something because he could not leave, but he also did not try. He just sat there and talked to the woman the entire time. She never asked about her husband or anything. She just figured he left and did not care from the beginning. How naive, I thought. Her husband is dead and she is just talking to her ex. But this was not my fight, so I did not let bias get in the way. I waited for the police to arrive, and after an hour, they finally did. I told the police the patient's room number. The police then arrested the man. But right before the police started to put the man in handcuffs, an explosion from outside happened. The man then sliced the police officer's neck open, running and then getting tased by the other police officer. The car explosion was on the husband's car, and the police officer who got stabbed in the neck ended up dying. The guy was arrested and charged with murder. The woman was also arrested because it turns out she didn't have anything wrong with her stomach, but instead they wanted to bomb the hospital. They never got time to because her husband showed up, and this made a change of plans. Their ex had to kill the husband and put the bomb around his car instead. I've always loved camping. I would go camping during the summer with my grandpa. He would pick me up from school at 3 p.m. on the dot. Then we would go and get ice cream from Cold Stone. I always got the founder's favorite. If you have not tried it yet, I do recommend you do. After we would get on the road and start heading to our camping area. It was only an hour away, so I would just play on my iPad until then. My grandpa always loved to help people, and on our way to our campsite, there was a car and a woman parked on the side of the road. My grandpa pulled over and went to see if the woman needed help with her car. From the interaction, I could tell something was off. Now, I was only 13 at the time, so anything I said would not matter, because I am a kid and not a grown-up. Yet. My grandpa asked the lady some questions, and she answered. She was also shaken. My grandpa did not see the danger we were in. My grandpa said he could take you to the nearest gas station, so she could call someone to pick her up. She agreed, and we all got in the truck and began to drive to the nearest gas station, which was about 15 minutes away. I sat in the back seat and just kept my eye on the lady because something felt off, and I could not tell what it was, but looking back at this incident, I will say, do not pick up random strangers on the side of the road, no matter what. My grandpa talked to her, and she kept quiet for the most part. When we arrived to the gas station, she went into the front counter and called someone. My grandpa waited and asked if she needed anything that would be in Red Zone camping area. Why would he ever tell this random stranger where we are heading to? The woman said okay, and my grandpa drove away. I remember asking my grandpa, why would you ever tell a random stranger where we are heading to? He said some people are in need and I want to help. Also that she is a lonely woman and nothing bad is going to happen. Now let's enjoy the ride and listen to music. After an hour, we arrived to the campsite. It was around 6 p.m. and it was getting a little dark outside. We found a place and set our tent up and started to gather wood so we could start a fire. My grandpa told me stories about when he was younger, and we just sat by the campfire and talked about life and looked at the nice view we had. The lake was right in front of us. I remember thinking to myself crazy thoughts like, what if this woman was a hitchhiker? And what if she and other people come here now? Because my grandpa said where we were heading to. My grandpa told me not to worry, plus we are an hour away and she doesn't have a way out here. The campsite is private and closes in the next hour. We are going to be okay. And do I want marshmallows? I melted some marshmallows and ate it over the campfire before I would start to get sleepy. My grandpa would always stay up late and just read his book by the campfire, so I went to sleep. After sleeping for an hour, I woke up to the sound in the woods. I thought maybe it was an animal. Let the leaves sound go on for a while before going to check it out. I remember opening my tent. I could see my grandpa still awake, staring at the lake. I asked, "Did you hear that sound, Grandpa?" He said yes. "It's probably an animal. You should get some more sleep, okay?" The next morning, we went fishing together. I noticed that there was nobody at the campsite but me and my grandpa. This was odd because this campsite was private, but every summer there would be at least 6 families here. Nobody this time. We kept fishing and we ended up exploring the woods more. We came across a cabin. The cabin looked abandoned, and we went inside and could see posters of people and pictures. I wasn't sure if these people were missing or not, but my grandpa looked at me and said, "We need to leave." We began packing our camp supplies up and got in the truck and left. At the entrance was a building you would have to check in at. My grandpa told me to stay in the truck and he would be back. He went and checked us out. There was only one police officer there. My grandpa then got back into the truck and we began to drive away. I remember the truck was making sounds and my grandpa knew something was wrong with the truck, but he kept driving. We got to a truck stop and that's when he stopped and got out and looked to see what was wrong with the truck. He saw that the truck had a flat tire. I remember looking at my grandpa and I could see the frustration in his face. Something was off. Everything just seemed off. That encounter with that woman on the road and the cabin with the pictures and posters and now a flat tire. I remember asking my grandpa if everything was okay, and he looked at me and said yes. And how he would have to Uber to a hotel and try to see if someone could pick us up. The nearest hotel was about 30 minutes away. And an Uber? This was a terrible idea. I remember saying that, and after a couple of minutes, an officer pulled into the truck stop and asked if everything was okay. My grandpa explained the situation, and the officer said he could send someone out here to fix it, and for us to wait here. We waited, and this officer was the same one from the campsite. I remember his face, but we waited for a mechanic to show up. He ended up hooking our truck up to his vehicle, and my grandpa paid him $100. We then went to his shop. When we arrived to the man's shop, he started to fix the flat tire. After he fixed the flat tire, he started to say that we should probably check the engine. Now, my grandpa's engine was working fine, so we disagreed and we got back on the road and started to drive home. On our way home, we had to stop at the gas station. Remember the one we gave the woman a ride to? That woman was no longer there, and the guy at the counter was creepy. He just stared at me and my grandpa the entire time. Right before my grandpa finished, we got in the truck and we tried to turn on the engine before we saw a group of people pull into the gas station. They parked one in front of us and one in the back. The group of people got out the vehicle and went into the gas station before robbing the cashier. The men did not have masks on. We were just stuck and the men saw us and started to tell us to get out of the vehicle while holding a gun in hand. My grandpa did not know what to do. We were stuck in the truck and these people had guns telling us to get out of the vehicle. The guy started to beat on the truck window and my grandpa was trying to turn on the engine to leave, but the engine was not coming on. The men started to bash the window before my grandpa got the engine on and drove away, hitting the car in front of us and speeding off on the highway. My grandpa kept speeding and had the cops on the phone, and all the men got in their cars and were chasing us. My grandpa kept driving and these men were chasing after us. We kept driving for about 10 minutes and we saw police and we drove towards them. The men behind us all tried to turn around, but it was too late. We were now safe and we told the police everything. And those men were all caught and are now in jail or prison now. I told my mom about what happened and she has not let me go camping ever since. I still see my grandpa though. I am just happy nothing bad happened to us. Also, those missing pictures were victim. I ended up figuring that out when I was doing some research in myself. I think the main takeaway from this story is you should never trust strangers because It turns out that woman who seemed innocent was in charge of this entire thing. She knew we would come back to that gas station. And that's why those people showed up when they did. Because the cashier told them. And the men did not follow orders. They hurt the cashier and robbed the place instead of doing what she wanted, which was to hurt us.